whatever they were trying to do. And that was the beginning of the theta service. The next day, he let me go to sleep, and he brought me in for the debriefing at his office. He said, I didn't think you'd qualify for theta. And then we went into it shifted, the entire program shifted. The kids that made it went into a remote viewing class, basically. And they let us sleep, and it began to be remote viewing, going to sleep with binaural sounds. They used, and I don't want to put them in, I don't want to guiltily associate them, but they used the techniques of the Monroe Institute back then. This was in 82 or maybe 83. Like I said, I lost but I think it was towards the end of 82. And they had Monroe Institute technology that they brought in. We all had big headphones and stereos, and we were doing the out of body exercise. And he was hiding rocks in the desert, painted rocks. And he would take us out in the desert near the airfield in Ullkern and say, these 3 or 4 mounds, he had little flags on mounds. These are where I'm going to put them. And then we would go in a remote view. We'd go into the out of body state, remote view, and come back and tell him what mound had the rocks on. And he was grading that, on a scale. And there were a couple kids that were very proficient at it, got it right every time. And I remember that at first I didn't get it. I got the 1 rock, and then I basically ended up getting 2 of the 3 targets consistently. And it wasn't stellar. He wanted very measurable results. But that's kind of where it went. And then after that, we did a few other exercises. I think I covered some of that in the book. And then we were shipped off to our individual places. We were shipped off individual. I went back to where the man that owned me in Seattle. I was privately owned. I was a industrial grade psychic kid, privately owned. And you think about some of the nefarious things that are going on. You think about somebody that's very competitive in the corporate world or in the government world. You think of somebody that has the ability to just go and put an IV bag in a child and talk to people from the past and the future and get actual intel from should I buy this company? Should I not buy this company? If you think about that kind of stuff, that's very powerful.
So just to kind of like summarize that and to get into the Peru part of your trip, you're taken to Inyukurn after you were involuntarily taken into the program, into this 20-year and back, taken to Inyukurn, and you're put through a kind of psychic training, remote viewing program. And I remember you telling me there was a famous remote viewer that was actually your instructor there at Inyukurn, which is right next to China Lake. That was, as you said, 1982, 83. And so then you're trained and you're shipped off to Peru. And when they want you to access that theta state, you go into a trance and you give them the information. And you're there for a couple of years. And you said you felt, you did well enough that they embraced you, and you did, and you were kind of like part of that community. But then that came to an end, and you were shipped back to Seattle. So what brought that to an end?
So I don't definitely know. It was right around puberty. So it might have just been a physiological change. It might have been something that works better in children before puberty. I was also under the direction to not eat sugar. I had a very bland diet when I was there in Peru. And I was not supposed to have any sugar. It was under no circumstances, because for whatever drug they were giving me, they gave me an IV bag. And then that's how the drug was administered when they put me under on the airplane while we were flying. And the guy that was my handler, basically, that was in charge of me, was the only guy that spoke English in the village. So he was stuck with me. His mother really had I guess felt, sympathetic to me. And she would come by, and she didn't speak English, but she was a very, very flamboyant person. And she would come by and she would hug me, and she would bring me lunch, and she would sneak me these sugar, like little muffins. They were like a cornbread with sugar in them. and she would bake them, and she would come by when nobody knew and give me a couple of them. And I think that made me sick when they put me under. If she did it, if I ate those before a flight, I think that the sugar and the drug they were giving me, because I began to get very sick and I wouldn't recover, and I lost effectiveness. So in the beginning, I mean, he was sitting down he had a notepad full of questions from people in the village during most of the flights after they learned how to, that it was going to work. And after a while, he said that the whole time I just said gibberish, that it was like I was speaking in tongues, like he couldn't understand what I was saying. So I just lost effectiveness. And that's how, he said that they actually passed the hat and they wanted to pay for me to stay, that they wanted to adopt me, and the village, they passed the hat, tried to raise money. But then the people that owned me, whoever they were, and he actually, I believe he said the word cabal back then, back in the early 80s, because I asked him several times, who owns me? Who do you work for? What is going on?